Welcome back to the weekly scoop. Round one is done and dusted, and I ended up with a not too shabby 889 points. I reckon serious players 900 was probably about par, so roundabout there. Had a couple of issues, but overall, I'm pretty happy with how my team is set up at the moment. So Grant went low over having Watson. It's probably the difference between a good week and a bad week for me. And then I had pretty common so far and Metcalf, which not too huge issues, but everybody else did pretty much what they're supposed to and are making money. So I'm relatively happy with that. I'll go through trades and stuff in a minute. I'm going to start with team lists and my just a quick little initial reaction to those before we rush onto the roundabouts of this week. So we have first off starting the Knights and the Dolphins on the Thursday night game. Man, the Knights really wanted to shift left quite a lot in that game against the Tigers, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get it to click a bit better this week because Adam O'Brien was filthy. You could see it in the commentary box. He was not happy with the way that they just kept bombing it and bombing it and bombing it over and over and over on the left. Bradman Worst needs to regain his Bradman Best title and give Greg Margie the ball and not drop it. But yeah, I've very good signs for Kalen Ponga, 60. And again, he didn't score a try. It's going to be very hard to watch as a non-Ponga owner for the next couple of weeks. Yeah, Marju happy with, Lucas happy with. All these kind of guys are as expected. If you didn't start with any of these guys, you're probably not rushing out to go and get them. Lucas is good. Marju is good, but there's more urgent options at the moment. On the Dolphins side, you've got a little bit of difference with Lemuelu. I think he fractured his eye socket or something, about out for a month or so, and Finafiliaki head knock or something like that. So Oren Keeley comes into the edge. Probably not a buy. He's a great player, but he's already 100k above basement, and who knows how long he's going to be there with the minutes, with Finafiliaki not too far off. Donahue, I suppose you have to mention him at his price. And the minutes that he got last week, I just don't really see a path for those big minutes to continue. He was pretty good, but when you've got Lemuelu, you've got Finafiliaki and all that other stuff going on, I don't think it'll be as sustainable. I wouldn't knock you too hard if you do pick him, but he just doesn't really seem a good buy for me, buying a bench utility kind of guy. Anyway, Tom Gilbert, how good? 59 points. Well, more than 59 points, actually. 65 points, 59 tackles. That's a ceiling game for him. He's probably one of the 4 or 5 targets you want to seriously consider this week. I don't think he's top of the table, but if you have the ability to do a one trade straight to him from somebody you're not so happy on, like Metcalf or maybe Seyfarth, you could do it. I'd say I probably wouldn't do Seyfarth to Gilbert personally because I just do think there's still a lot of value in Seyfarth. That was a floor game for him. Errors everywhere, as we said with the Knights game. It just wasn't a fantastic game for Seyfarth to score points, especially with the HIA. So I'm backing him to bounce back. Gilbert will be better than Seyfarth points-wise, but is it worth the 10 points that you usually value a trade at? I don't think so. Can if you want, but I think this is a good week to probably minimize trading if you don't have any burning issues, because you remember last year we had so much going on at the beginning of the year. This year is very different. Adam Elliott's back, but he's not starting, so not really a lot happening. Yeah, pretty much what I was saying. Okay, the Warriors. The Warriors have surprisingly not changed really anything apart from they went back to what their original team was before the late switch. Barnett owners, you're probably hurting if you jumped on. Like, you were hoping for those Tohu minutes at lock. Didn't really happen. Fish got some really nice late updates to beat his break even by a fair bit with a 51. I do not think that rotation will happen again. It was very clear that the Warriors struggled immediately as soon as Barnett and Fish were off. I think it didn't cost them a game against the Raiders, but it was the start of the pylon. So get keen for Fish to stay in your team for another week. Don't go sideways trading him to Horse. Fish could still be good. Fish can still be a 50 plus player. Horse is better, yeah, but don't go making those sideways trades unnecessarily just because you have all these lovely trades to look at, in my opinion. Metcalf, I think he's the talking point of the week, really. So I'll address him now. Metcalf had no attacking and he had like 16 demerits. He had 35 just in base, which is where he's priced at. He just needs a little bit of attack to get up towards that 10 points, which I think he can do. Goals and attack, I think he can. But I think his value is only 10 points now that Chanel Harris-Tavita is there instead of Tamari Martin. His kicking split was like about 55-60%, which is probably what we thought with CHT compared to TMM, where he would have kicked a lot more. He would have been borderline must-have the other way around. This way, he's a good buy. But now you have the situation where there's pressure on him. The Warriors don't look great. There's an upcoming buy. What are the odds that he's suddenly going to be making 100K within the next month, which is where you want to generate most of your cash, the first month or two of the season? I personally think he'll still make it up to 550K plus, but it could take until like round 10 or 11. And with the hot start that so many other players have, I really think that you can afford to move somebody on like Metcalf because there are so few other issues unless you have like a really dire need. Like if you went pod on Ryan Couchman or you have Moale or something, and just something that doesn't work out, like Tuolagi's dropped. Those three, I would 100% prioritize over Metcalf. But if you don't have any of those, there's probably not too much wrong with your team. And yeah, you can get rid of Metcalf, even if it is a little bit sideways. Anyway, Wade Egan played 80, but I don't know how long that will last. I reckon the rotations are pretty different this week, but that is to be waited and seen upon. And most relevant, Fish watch. I think Fish will do a lot more this week. How good did Turbo look, though? He was so amazing, but he did suffer the consequences of not kicking goals and not getting any kick meters like some of the other elite wing fullbacks. And after tearing it up, he did only finish on about 56 or something like that. So he's great. I still stick to my premise that he's going to average 60 for the first month, and then he'll average a lot less because of that rough run. Garrick's great. You knew what you were getting into with Garrick. You got 50 points out of him like you thought you were going to get to. Move on. Olakau'atu, great, but he's super coach buy, probably not a fantasy buy. Panthers. Now we've got the full squad back. We've got To'o back instead of the weird Alamotti wing and Garner center arrangement. I think Cleary's just going to feast against the Roosters. The Sharks game, there was a lot of dropped ball. They were working out what they were doing, and he was still very close to being like a 70 score because of a try going begging and things like that. So I really do think that he's still the number one captaincy option this week, despite Terrell May playing so many minutes and Payne Haas just looking absolutely unreal. I think Cleary versus Roosters, who've got some defensive issues and players missing, goes for 80 this week. You have Garner back on the bench. Probably the only one left to come back in now is Liam Henry, and he might this week. I'd say for probably Eisenhuth. Yo's great. Captain him if you want. I'd probably prefer Cleary. Toya was a legend. Billy Smith is in the reserves, so watch out for that. I would say his spot is less under threat than Mark's. Mark did well, a couple defensive lapses, but don't worry about them until it actually happens, in my opinion. I wouldn't go out and buy Mark Nwanganita was saying now, just in case that does happen and because you're spending a trade on it, but don't worry about it until it happens. This forward pack, though, look at this. You got no Cheese, you've got no Nat Butcher, you've got no Victor Radley, you've got no Terrell May anymore, you've got no Warrior Hargreaves anymore. That is very, very. It's starting to get pretty thin, let's just say. Great for Connor Watson. Probably you'd think it's good for White, although he didn't play as many as I would have thought. But yeah, White still looks like he's going to be scoring probably 40s in around 50 minutes this week. Watson owners, which is most people, that's great. I'm not going to be very pleased given that I started with Grant over him. Grant just did not tackle at all because the Storm killed the Eels so badly. So unfortunate. Yeah, expect big minutes, big points for them. They're fine. They're great. Dragons. I think the interesting part about this game was that Toby Couchman played, well, huge minutes, 70 minutes, because of his brother getting an ACL injury and all that. They do have Sele coming back soon. They do have Clemmer potentially coming over very shortly. But the big thing for me was Damien Cook played 60 minutes, like we thought, and Little played 26. And Little looked incredible. They cannot play Little for 26 minutes a game. They cannot. He is too good. I still don't really know why they bought him, but Cook will be the 9. Little really needs to play 50 minutes. Little needs to play 30 that DeBellin doesn't play, and the 20 that Cook doesn't play, and that be that. But for now, it was interesting to see them give extra minutes to Couchman instead of Little for some unknown reason. Maybe the rotations didn't work out perfectly. I don't know what, but good signs for Couchman owners anyway. Another team that's got a lot of injuries. I've never even heard of Bentley Hape before, so hopefully he has a good debut game and doesn't get bashed around too much. Charity Shield as well, but all the talk is about this bloke here, the man, the myth, the legend, Jamie Humphries. If you were to guess last week, how much base do you think Jamie Humphries would have had, including if you're including goals, because that's just something that he'll look for. If you don't include goals, he had 58 points in kick meters, run meters, and tackles. 58 points, and he looks amazing. The vibes are great. He hasn't been knocking the door down, training the house down. The whole street's gone. The vibes are there. The narrative is there. It is going to be very hard to pry him out of a starting spot in that team now. Like, how can you? Yes, it might happen, but the downside of it, you missing out on, I think is just too great at this stage. I think you just put Jamie Humphries in and you'd be happy with the 50K he makes this week if he, for some reason, doesn't work out. He's still going to be in the team. He's still going to be on the bench or possibly starting hooker and still scoring you like 30 or something in the meantime. So he's still going to make money, worst case scenario. Best case scenario, he makes like 250K. You just buy him. The end. The end. Metcalf to Humphries is by far the most popular trade this week. That is my only trade. And yeah, I would do that this week if you are looking to get rid of Metcalf. If you don't have Metcalf, it depends on who else you have in your team. And I would be much happier to go like a safe half to a Humphries than I would say a safe half to a Gilbert even. I think safe half to Horse is justified because Horse is going to be amazing. I think Horse is going to be fantastic, especially with Tarpanay out suspended for a bit. He's going to get like 55 plus in 60 minutes and you're going to love it. So I think you just bring him in. He looks amazing. He's playing amazing. Ricky reckons he's in for Origin. You buy him this week. I suppose you can look next week if Humphries is going to be there and if other things are going to work out. But in my mind, that's really just guaranteeing that you're losing 50K to make sure that you don't lose 100K. And that seems way, way too conservative when there's so many good attacking type of plays and buys that you can go for in this next month. If you can save a trade anyway, why wouldn't you jump on the other trade doing something a little bit spicy in round one? You're going to have other problems later. You can deal with them later. Hubner, lots of minutes, not as many points as we we're probably hoping, but fine. Duncan got quite a lot from the bench too, and that really hurt Moale. Moale, I would say, is just one of those three that is just a sell. Him, Tuolagi, and, well, not many people had Ryan Couch, but one of my mates ended up buying him for his lovely 0 and exploded knee. So thoughts to the Couchman bros. We're really looking forward to see them the next few years, but not this year for Ryan. Anyway, we'll move on to Cows game and the Sharks. I think the Sharks are pretty much unchanged, and the Cows have had some external drama sort of floating around if you've been following the media and the narrative, but it ends up with Nana dropped to Cup, with Peyton saying, I think that, yeah, his attack's fine, but that he needs to work on his defence a little bit. I think Kai O'Donnell, for that reason, is a trap. Like, he's an origin player, Nanai. Yes, he has defensive lapses, but he's not going to be kept out of the team for 6 weeks just to work on his defence. It'll be a couple, and then he'll come back ready to go and with his head in the right space to actually go, oh, I have to play to earn my spot and do all of the little 1%ers. Bateman, it's good for Bateman. Bateman got 80. Bateman did well. If you have Bateman, that is great. If you don't have Bateman, would I pick him over Gilbert? No. Would I say he's necessarily a worse pick than Gilbert? It's close. I'd say he's probably just a shade below because he's more expensive. Like Gilbert might be able to go close to matching him for a little bit cheaper, so that's where I'd go. Duffy, great. Everybody owns him. Fantastic. Drinky saved himself with a try and a couple of little bits late. But yeah, Drinkwater price watch over the next month or so with this tough schedule. Game of the round, I reckon. Raiders were exciting. Broncos were ultra exciting. I think it's going to be a really fun clash. Do be careful if you want to play Tamale because, well, if the Broncos get a roll on, maybe it won't turn out so good for him. But he did exactly what we wanted to see. Hopper's in the alternate jersey because Savage is suspended. It's Tamale's spot now. Yeah, and Papali is starting because there's no Tarpanay. Horse great. Starling probably fine because Brayley's coming next year. But if we do see any whispers of a quick release to go over there, I would then start worrying. But for now, Tom Starling, if you had him, great. Don't know if I'd actually rush out and buy him because Owen Paddy will slowly get better and better in more minutes. Nicholson and Sasagi, though, doubt Hoskin gets 80. Surely not. Nicholson will probably play more middle than edge, I'd say. Sasagi will be the guy that does the edge, but yeah. Hosking, if you have him, he's fantastic. Don't buy him because 1 ppm is an edge. Nobody can do that. Even Hosking, to be honest. So I think he can do better than this price for sure. I think he can average 50, but that was the best case scenario for him. I think small field, more tackles, round one, stuff going up the middle, all that type of stuff. But how good did the Broncos look? And well done if you had Shib and Gajewski after all the flack and all the naysaying I did. And Gajewski didn't do his chances any harm with Piakura missing 1 tackle, having a pen and going to the bin for a lovely -9, which is somehow worse than round 1 last year. But that's remains to be seen as to how that progresses. So if he ends up getting 60 plus minutes instead of like the maybe a little bit more even split I was thinking, he'll still be good. But have a think. If you take out that try and that line break, that 41 or 42 drops to high 20s in 80 minutes. I think he had 13 tackles, and that's why we were scared of Gajewski. Gajewski does not have a good fantasy base, but he's very cheap. if he continues to get a little bit of attack, he'll do enough and he'll do well. But one guy who does have a lot of attack and a lot of everything, how good did this bloke look? He didn't even need to come back. He went off early because his job was done. 81 in about 50 minutes is 1.6 points per minute. That is astonishing. That won't be every week. But if you're worried about Madge minutes, I don't think you have to worry too much because you know that Haas is going to be Haas. And that was great. That was great as an owner. Eels are going to do better than they did against the Storm. I may never emotionally recover from this. I expected to lose, especially with the outs, but 46-0 was astonishing. They looked so good. They looked amazing. The Storm. Pappenhausen, I think it was one of Pappenhausen's best games. But yeah, Iongi saved his score with a try, but he won't. He was one of the best players on the field for the Eels. He was doing everything, trying to get the ball, made some cracking tackles. He's what we need. He's fantastic. Dylan Brown is now signing away to the Knights, which I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I think that it's good that the drama's over. We're going to miss him because he's one of the best sixes in the comp, but how will he go at 7? I really don't know if the Knights have pulled a good deal here because we've seen him the last year or two when he's been given the 7. He hasn't really taken hold of it. He's a great player to just somebody controls the game and he just goes and cuts up. I don't think he's a game controller, but it will be, as Jay-Z says, it will be fun. It will be very fun for a few years. More carnage, no to a luggy. I just think Riles is changing stuff because the standards need to be high, but also what he thought was good was not. Did you see some of those holes? They were shocking. Absolutely shocking. Jack Williams was pretty solid, pretty good. Hopgood, he will score better than that. The minutes were encouraging. I don't think he'll get 70 every week because people get hooked 13 minutes into the game. But that was what you wanted to see. Riley Smith also solid. It's the return of Reed Marnie, number 2, with the headgear, just a different colour. Good stuff. Lomax, please go back to the wing. I beg. I absolutely beg of you. Go back to the wing. You were Dally M Team of the Year winger, and now you're at centre. Please go back to the wing. Please. I beg of you. Moving Tigers. Toa's there. If your Luke's using Toa, you'll be happy. Taylor May's charges have been dropped, and given that Terrell May is at the Tigers, it's possible that he could go there, but he'd need some time to get match fit, surely. And I mean, that's assuming that he does get signed. So there's no reason not to have the staff of Toa. Don't just like suddenly be scared off because Taylor May's going to drop in there in 2 weeks. It will not be that fast. Terrell May is the GOAT. He is basically Hopgood from 2023. So don't captain him in round 3. Captain him this week, but not round 3 because you'll go like 80, 80, and then 30 because reasons. Seyfarth wasn't the game for him. 29 in 65 minutes. Head knock probably stopped him from getting mid-30s or high or like a 40. And there were so many errors that he couldn't get enough base. I think he'll be all right. Similar for Jack Bird. He played 52 minutes, which is probably what you were hoping for, but 26 points just because it wasn't the game for it. And then the last game of the round, I actually have a sneaky feeling the Titans are going to win this because, I mean, look at this lovely back line. Keeney, Brimson, Campbell in the spine and this absolutely monstrous forward pack. Fifita's bench, I still don't get that. Yes, more impact coming on against tired forwards, but if you're paying that much for Fifita and he's that good, just play him for 80 minutes. Please. I don't get it. But I'm not a footy coach, so what do I know? Tino Locke, Fodawaker, Campbell Gillard prop, and you've got Jolliffe there. That is a very, very, very powerful engine. And I think they could push over the Dogs a little bit. So I'm actually reckon I might tip the Titans in this one. But yeah, Brimson and Campbell, if you had one or both and looped with them last week, you're going to be relishing the opportunity to see what they could do. Preston, 80 minutes was interesting. Critter went off 10 minutes early, so I guess it's not a guarantee he'll play 80, but it was a great sign. 42 points, so not what you wanted, but again, those are the type of floor games, and you got 80 minutes out of him. You got what you probably wanted to see, and I would not move him to Gilbert. Do not sideways trade Preston to Gilbert. Probably do not sideways trade Preston to Horse. You bought Preston because you thought he's going to average better than 52 this year because he's going to play 80 minutes and he's a gun in like the 70 minutes he got last year. So don't change your opinion based on him missing it by 10 points in one game. That's crazy. Crazy. Anyway, that's the end of your teams. Back to my team. So that was what I did last week. This is my setup currently for this week. So Grant and Munster are here doing double loops. Humphreys is straight into that half spot. Lovely, fantastic. I've put Mark down there versus the Panthers. I'm very heavily debating putting Cole up here and doing like a half double loop with 3 people, but I can't really do that with 2 Roosters because they play the same game. An alternative would be to go to Male because he's playing the Broncos, but I don't think they'll get belted as bad. And Tamale's very promising signs for his scoring just all around in general. So I might just bite the bullet and do sort of a bit of an inefficient loop somehow because some of these guys just play the first game. Like, I guess I could loop Duffy versus the Sharks if the Sharks carve up, but Duffy's Duffy. He kicks a lot. He's not going to get absolutely brutalised like Sandon Smith, who kicks goals, yes, but doesn't get the kick meters that Duffy will. It just seems like a way better play. Anyway, getting towards the end of it, but we'll touch on a few leagues now. So we've got the Battle of the Podcasts opening up. Jamie's heading there up towards the top. I had an all right start. There's Mitch all the way up there, some really handy scores. Some of the Echo Chamber lads floating around there as well. There's a lot of guys that we'll track throughout the season, lots of different podcasts, and we'll get to see who knows their stuff, I guess. It's a really good fun thing to have a look at each year. So that's about it. We'll get onto those questions from some of the others that were in the WhatsApp group. Jamie wanted to know what my strategy was with trades moving forward. I sort of answered it before, but I personally think that, yes, you want to trade hard. You want to sideways trade Metcalf to Humphreys because there's a lot more upside in Humphreys than Metcalf. Metcalf could still be 10 points eventually. Humphreys could be a lot more than that. And you jump on now, you attack that. I don't think you have to force 2 trades if you don't need to. If you need Horsburgh and Humphreys, that's probably the only situation I'd go 2 trades this week. Unless you're cleaning up some garbage in like a double to a luggy and Metcalf and Moale, something like that. But I think this is a really, really rare opportunity to save trades or a trade in round 1 because nearly everybody did what we thought they might. And that's pretty rare. That's very rare. Last year we had about 6 players that were dumpster fire territory, especially those Roosters edges, but there's probably only a couple that are big watches at the moment. So I'm very happy to save 1 trade this week and then do something next week. Cookie was talking about, do you trade safe after Horse? Jamie and Mitch were disagreeing a little bit on that. I think Safarth to Horse is the only situation I would trade Safarth. Or like if you have Horse, Safarth to Humphreys if you don't have Metcalf, maybe. But like I would still probably try and do someone else other than Seyfarth. Maybe you could do White if you're really worried about the Roosters' rotations, especially when everything comes back, because Seyfarth is lower risk for the role, whereas White's is unknown, could work out poorly, but at least for this round and the next round or two, White looks pretty safe for 50 minutes with no Nat Butcher, no Victor Radley, no this, no that, no, looks fine. So I think you can trade one of them if you need to get Horse this week, but I wouldn't trade them any other way, basically, unless you need Humphreys, only buy them, or need Horse, only buy them. So that's how I would answer that. What was everything else? Mitch wanted some Fish talk. So Fish scored 51 points in about 47 minutes. Aaron Clark, Dylan Walker, and Jackson Ford all played bigger minutes than him. And the Warriors absolutely copped it when Fish and Barnett went off. That says to me that Fish will not play 47 minutes and the others will play higher than him again. Maybe he won't get 55, 60 like we thought, but I do not see him playing less than those guys again. Or at least not all of them. There's no situation in my mind where you don't have your good players on the park playing footy. So I'm not a footy coach again. Webster might have some different ideas, but I really don't see a worst case scenario for Fish. Horse is better than Fish at this stage, but I still think Fish is going to be a 50 average guy, at least. What else? Is there any others? Fish talk, Jamie stuff, strategy. Gilbert talk. Okay, so I think Tom Gilbert has shown a little bit like Carrigan did last year in round one, that with a little bit of extra prep time off an ACL injury, that he can come back firing and not really feeling too much of the effects of that ACL. A lot of the time we say, first year back isn't fully fit. But now we've had two examples where they've had a little bit extra time and they can really go hard. Do I think that Gilbert is going to average 55? No. I think Gilbert is probably going to average 50. I think he's going to do that in 60 minutes. I think he's going to do very well. He's probably better than I thought he was going to be. And his work rate looked like he was very hungry to go out and do everything. But remember, it was round one. They had Finifuriaki for head knock. They had Lemuelu bust his eye. It was all down to Gilbert and some of the other dudes to hold it together in a close game and really lead that team. So I think Gilbert will lock himself in for that 10 points of value. Will that lock him in for more than that? Probably not. Are you expecting Gilbert to average 65? No. Then why are you just saying 59 tackles, 59 tackles? Nobody averages 59 tackles a season. Nobody. It will be 40, 45. I think Gilbert is good. That is a Gilbert ceiling game. Do not ultra panic if you don't have Gilbert. If you have Gilbert, love it. Fantastic. I would say the order of priority buys this week goes first Humphreys, second Horse, third Gilbert, and then maybe you can say a Bateman or whatever if you want. But I think they're the clear top three, with Gilbert being third. So if you don't have him and you need the others, don't. If you have zero other problems, and I mean zero, maybe you could trade Seyfarth to Gilbert. Maybe, but I personally don't like it. I still think Seyfarth is 10 points of value. He's just started with the floor game. Gilbert started with the ceiling game. So, in my opinion, Gilbert's a buy, but I probably wouldn't be buying him, considering who everybody has. Unless you have Horse, unless you have Humphreys, and you can trade Metcalf to Gilbert with a lot of cash. That's just a trade that makes sense, right? And if you have that in your team, you can see that pathway's there and it makes sense. Don't make a trade that doesn't make sense. That's how footy works. Use your gut, use your intuition, and use those values. Use the money. So that's how I'm going to be running this week. I will probably be doing some consideration about how I set up this loop most efficiently and all that, but that's how I'm going for now. I've got about, I made about 220k in the first week, which is pretty solid. That's about average, I think. So for me, Humphrey's straight in for Metcalf. Humphrey's used to make a lot, and I'm going to leave it at that. So thanks for watching, everybody. Turned out to be a little longer than I thought it was going to be, but that's the scoop mindset. The scoop mindset just approaches the stats, yes, but I have got lost in the sauce in previous seasons. And when I stopped doing that, I did really well. Last year, I held to too many narratives very strongly and then really didn't put my foot down and grind. This year, I'm looking to take a bit more of a narrative and gut feel and stats all together approach, and hopefully that works out for me in a combination of ways, because all of the best players seem to just know their way around the footy and follow their nose. And I think this player's got a good buy. He's a really good player. They have an opportunity to do this, so I'm going to get them. Even if the stats say it might be tough to give them the minutes. Sometimes you have to make those plays. I'm going to try and be that type of player this year. So we'll see how I stick to that through the season. Thanks, everyone. And I will catch you next week.